10 years ago, two friends walked out of the same university with the same degree. Their names were Jack and Ben. They were both intelligent, ambitious, and full of hope. They started working at the same international company, earned the exact same salary, and lived in the same neighborhood. At that moment, they looked identical. But if you looked closer, you would see a small fork in the road. You see, most people believe that success is a giant explosion, a single moment of luck or a massive stroke of genius. But as Jack and Ben moved through their lives, they proved that this is a lie. Success is not a destination. It is a direction chosen every single morning. Today, 10 years later, Ben is a director at the company, traveling the world and speaking 3 languages fluently. Jack, however, is still sitting at the same desk, doing the same repetitive tasks, and feeling bitter about his life. He often asks himself, why did Ben get so lucky? Why am I still stuck in the middle? Jack doesn't realize that average is not a destiny that was chosen for him. It was a habit he built, 1 second at a time. Before we look at the daily choices that separated these two friends, welcome to the English Oasis. This is your sanctuary to improve your English through stories that challenge your mind and grow your soul. If you want to escape the average path and reach your full potential in English, please subscribe and join us. Now, let's look at how their mornings began. Let's look at Jack. Jack's morning doesn't start with a plan. It starts with a struggle. When the alarm rings at 7:00 am, Jack doesn't wake up. Instead, his hand automatically reaches for the snooze button. He does this 3 or 4 times. By the time he actually leaves his bed, he already feels like he is losing. His first action of the day is to pick up his phone. He spends 30 minutes scrolling through social media, looking at short videos and photos of other people's lives. He isn't learning anything. He is just consuming noise. By 8:00 am, his brain is already tired from the digital junk food. At the office, Jack is known as the complainer. He spends his coffee breaks talking about how unfair the company is, how the economy is bad, and how his boss doesn't recognize his talent. He feels like a victim of his environment. Whenever he thinks about improving himself, perhaps by practicing his English or taking a professional course, he uses his favorite word, tomorrow. I'm too tired today, Jack tells himself. I'll start my English lessons tomorrow when I have more energy. I'll start that project when the timing is perfect. Jack believes that he needs a massive amount of motivation to start. He is waiting for a big wave to carry him forward. Because that big wave never comes, he stays exactly where he is. He is comfortable in his routine, but it is the comfort of a trap. He is choosing the pleasure of the moment over the success of the future. He doesn't realize that by delaying his growth, he is actually making his life harder. He is staying average because average is easy. But as the months pass, easy choices will lead to a very difficult life. Now, let's look at Ben. Ben's morning begins long before he arrives at the office. When his alarm rings, he doesn't fight it. He doesn't see the morning as an enemy. He sees it as an opportunity. While Jack is still sleeping, Ben is already winning. Ben's secret isn't a superpower. It is a concept called the compound effect. He understands that doing something small every day is more powerful than doing something big once a month. Instead of scrolling through his phone, Ben spends 10 minutes reading a book that challenges his thinking. Then he dedicates 15 minutes to practicing English. He doesn't try to learn 100 words at once. He focuses on mastering just 3 or 4 phrases. He listens to a podcast while he prepares his breakfast. To an outsider, these actions look insignificant. Jack often mocks him, saying, "Why do you work so hard? It's just 10 minutes. It won't change anything." But Ben knows better. He knows that discipline is like a bank account. Every time he chooses to learn instead of scroll, he is making a deposit into his future. While Jack complains at the office, Ben is looking for solutions. He doesn't wait for his boss to give him a promotion. He prepares himself to be worthy of one. He faces his fears head on. If there is a difficult email to write in English, Ben volunteers to do it. He knows he might make mistakes, but he also knows mistakes are the only way to grow. Ben isn't searching for a big wave of motivation. He relies on his routine. He understands that average people act based on how they feel, but exceptional people act based on their goals. Even on days when he is tired or uninspired, he still shows up. He stays quiet. He stays focused. And he stays consistent. Jack is waiting for the world to change for him. Ben is changing himself so he can change his world. 6 months passed. On the surface, Jack and Ben still looked the same. They wore the same suits and sat in the same office. But underneath, their foundations were completely different. One Tuesday afternoon, the company's CEO called an emergency meeting. A massive partnership with a European client was on the table. It was a golden opportunity, but there was a catch. The project required a leader who could communicate fluently in English and manage a high-pressure environment. This project will lead to a guaranteed promotion and a chance to work in the London office, the CEO announced. Who is ready to take the lead? The room went silent. Jack felt his heart racing. This was exactly what he had dreamed of, the big jump he had been waiting for. But as he opened his mouth to speak, he felt paralyzed by fear. He realized he hadn't opened an English book in months. He had spent his evenings watching movies instead of practicing. He knew that if he took the job, he would fail publicly. He stayed quiet, looking at his shoes, feeling a wave of regret wash over him. Then Ben stood up. Ben was also nervous. His hands were slightly cold, but he didn't let the fear stop him. He remembered his 15 minutes of daily practice. He remembered the hundreds of small victories he had won at 7:00 a.m. while Jack was asleep. He had the vocabulary. He had the discipline. Most importantly, he had the confidence that comes from preparation. "I'll do it," Ben said firmly. "I've been preparing for a challenge like this." Jack watched his friend with a mixture of anger and sadness. He told himself, Ben is just lucky. He happened to be at the right place at the right time. Jack didn't want to admit the painful truth. Ben wasn't lucky. Ben was ready. The crisis revealed the invisible gap between them. For Jack, the tomorrow he had been waiting for had finally arrived, but he was too weak to grab it. For Ben, the daily habits had finally turned into a life-changing weapon. Watching Ben succeed was a wake-up call for Jack. For a few days, he felt a burst of temporary motivation. He thought, if Ben can do it, I can do it too. On Monday, Jack woke up early. He didn't hit the snooze button. He opened a heavy English textbook and tried to study for 2 hours. On Tuesday, he went to the gym and pushed himself until he was exhausted. He was trying to make the big jump to catch up with Ben. But by Wednesday, the excitement started to fade. His body was sore, and the English grammar felt too complicated. He looked at himself in the mirror and felt frustrated. "I worked so hard for 2 days," he complained, "but my life still looks exactly the same. I'm not fluent yet, and I'm still tired." Jack had hit the plateau. This is the flat area of the journey where you are putting in the effort, but you don't see any visible results. Most people stay average because they quit during this stage. They expect a linear relationship between effort and reward. When the reward doesn't come immediately, they assume the effort is wasted. Jack looked at Ben. Ben was working even harder now, but he looked calm. Ben wasn't looking for a reward every day. He was focused on the system. "Why do you keep going?" Jack asked him during lunch. "You've been studying for months, and you're still just practicing the basics." Ben smiled. "I'm not waiting for a big change, Jack. I'm just building a foundation. You see, a bamboo tree grows underground for 5 years, showing nothing on the surface. But in the 6th year, it grows 80 feet in just 6 weeks. I'm just in my 5th year." Jack didn't understand. He wanted the 80 feet of growth right now. Because he couldn't see the progress, he returned to his old habit. He picked up his phone, pressed the snooze button on his goals, and went back to his average life. He chose the pain of regret because the pain of discipline felt too slow. A year had passed since the two friends stood at that fork in the road. In the grand scheme of time, 365 days is not very long. But in the world of personal growth, it is an eternity. Jack's life was stagnant. He was still in the same apartment, sitting in the same chair, and complaining about the same problems. His English hadn't improved. In fact, he had forgotten much of what he knew. He felt older, more tired, and more cynical. To Jack, the world felt like a cold, unfair place where only the lucky few could succeed. He spent his evenings watching TV, numbing the feeling that his life was passing him by. Then there was Ben. Ben was unrecognizable. The transformation wasn't just in his job title or his salary. It was in his eyes, He moved with a sense of purpose. Because he had practiced English every single day, he was now leading international meetings with confidence. He had travelled to London, met world-class experts, and expanded his mind. The average gap between them had become a canyon. Jack looked at Ben and felt a deep sense of resentment. "It's not fair," Jack whispered to himself. "Ben just got all the opportunities." But the truth was much simpler and much more painful. Ben didn't have more hours in the day than Jack. He didn't have more talent. He simply had more accumulated wins. Ben had 365 more hours of study than Jack. Ben had 650 more minutes of exercise than Jack. Ben had 365 fewer snooze moments than Jack. These small daily decisions had added up. While Jack was choosing easy every morning, he was actually making his future hard. While Ben was choosing hard every morning, he was making his future easy. The average life Jack led was not a destiny. It was the result of his daily choices. Jack stayed average because he refused to pay the price of being exceptional, the price of being bored, being tired, and still showing up. The story of Jack and Ben is not just about two friends. It is a mirror for all of us. It reveals a hard truth. Average is not a destiny. It is a daily decision. We often think that people who stay average are simply unlucky. We think they didn't get the right connections, the right education, or the right timing. But look at Jack. He had the same education and the same job as Ben. The only thing Jack lacked was the courage to be uncomfortable. Jack stayed average because he chose the short-term pleasure of sleep over the long-term satisfaction of growth. He stayed average because he valued his excuses more than his potential. In his mind, he was waiting for the right moment, but in reality, he was just letting his life slip away. Ben, on the other hand, understood that to escape being average, you must do what average people are unwilling to do. You must wake up when you are tired. You must study when you are bored. You must face your fears when you feel small. The resolution of their story is a powerful lesson for anyone learning English. If you study for just 15 minutes today, you might not see the change tomorrow. But you are not just learning words. You are escaping average. You are building the foundation that will support your future success. The gap between Jack and Ben didn't happen overnight. It was built by 365 mornings of yes. Success is not about being a genius. It is about being consistently better than the person you were yesterday. Average is the easy path, the crowded path, and the safe path. But the exceptional life is reserved for those who understand that every choice, no matter how small, is a brick in the house they are building. You are the architect of your own destiny. The question is, what kind of house are you building today? Let's summarize the journey of Jack and Ben to see the lesson clearly. Jack and Ben started with the same potential, but they ended with very different lives. Why? It all came down to their daily rituals. Jack lived in the tomorrow trap. He was a victim of procrastination. Every morning, he chose the comfort of the snooze button and the distraction of his phone. He believed that success was a matter of luck, and since he felt unlucky, he spent his time complaining. Because he never prepared, he was paralyzed by fear when a real opportunity finally appeared. Jack stayed average because he chose the easy path every single day. Ben, however, understood the power of compounding. He didn't wait for a miracle. He built his own. He practiced quiet discipline by studying English every morning. To an outsider, his actions seemed insignificant, but they were actually building his foundation. When the big opportunity arrived, Ben was worthy of it. He didn't win because he was a genius. He won because he was consistent. The gap between them after 1 year was inevitable. One man was stagnant, while the other had achieved a total transformation. The lesson is simple. Average is not a destiny. It is a result of your daily decisions. If you want to escape being average, you must stop making excuses and start making progress. One small win at a time. We have seen the two paths. One path is wide, easy, and comfortable, but it leads to a place of regret. The other path is narrow, quiet, and demanding, but it leads to a life of freedom. Jack and Ben are not just characters in a story. They are the two voices inside your head every single morning. One voice says, "Stay in bed? It doesn't matter." The other voice says, "Get up. Your future is waiting." Remember, average is not a destiny. It is a daily decision. If you are listening to this, you have already made a better choice than most. You have spent your time learning, growing, and improving your English. You are already moving away from the average path. But the real test is what you do after this video ends. Will you go back to scrolling, or will you take 10 minutes to practice what you learned? Thank you for spending your time with us at the English Oasis. We believe that everyone has the potential to be exceptional as long as they are willing to be consistent. If this story challenged you, please like and subscribe. Before you go, here is your anti-average challenge. Write one thing in the comments that you will stop doing and one thing you will start doing starting tomorrow. Don't wait for tomorrow. Start your escape today. Goodbye from the English Oasis. We will see you in the next story.